for this video, I'm going to show you how I make like little backdrops on the back of my cake. So what you're going to need is a cake drum, which is the thick cake board. This one's the same size as the cake that I'm using. You can do it a tiny bit smaller if you want like the next size down, that's fine. But don't go bigger than what your cake is. Okay, so we're going to start by putting a line down the centre, and we're going to cut that cake board in half. Now, you might find it easier to use a little saw for it. I don't have a saw, as I don't have much of a toolkit, so I'm just going to use a kitchen knife to saw through that. Okay, so you're going to saw down that line. Obviously do it on a work surface where it doesn't matter if you catch the work surface. So I'm just sawing backwards and forwards. So when you've sawn through it enough, you should be able to snap the bit that's left. Obviously there's still joint a bit there, so I'll try and go through that bit. And then you want to clear away the mess that you've made. Just decide which half you're going to use. Now I've torn it a little bit here, so I'll use the other half. Obviously we want to get rid of as many bits that are dropping off the bottom as we can. You need to clear away your mess. I will clear it away properly in a second. And we're just going to tape over this edge. So just using some tape, make sure it's longer than or about the same length as your board. And what I'm going to do is start by taping it on one side and then push it over. And then I'll do the same on the other side. Obviously if you've got thicker tape then great, you won't need to do it all at once. So again, over there, and tape it so it overlaps with the other one that you've just put on. And I'll just put a little bit around the ends to keep it in. So where it's folded over there, we'll just tape it down. And again at the other end. So now I've just got some wooden kebab skewers. If you want to use plastic ones, then you can do. And what I'm going to do is put them inside here, and we're going to measure them so that this bit that sticks out at the bottom is a similar length to the depth of the cake that you're going to be sticking it in. Now you can have it slightly shorter. You don't want it too short because it won't have enough support when it's in the cake, but if you have it too long, it means this will stand up off the cake and you'll have a gap between the two. So I'm going to push it into about here. So I'll mark that off on there, and then the depth of my cake I'll put on here. Okay. And you're going to do this 3 times. You can do it more than 3 times if you like. So I'll just cut that. I just want to make sure if you are using wooden ones that no bits are splintering off. So this one's probably not a very good one to show you because it's splintered a little bit. But you can always put a bit of tape around the end as well to stop it splintering. So we'll put this, if I can get it to stay, we'll put that around the bottom so that the bits of wood don't splinter off the end. Okay. And then what we're going to do is push it, and just be careful when you are pushing this in. Make sure your hand's not directly above where it's going, because you don't want to go too far through and find that you come out too far at the top. So I'll put it in this way and push it in like so. If you want to check, just check what you'd measured it at before, if you pushed it too far in or not, but that will be fine. And I'm going to do that 2 more times. So I've pushed another 2 in. You can put more in if you like, but I find if I go further outwards at either side, you haven't got very much space inside the board for the stick to go into. So I tend to put mine just in 3 places like that. But you can try it in more places, that's absolutely fine. So what we're going to do now is we'll pattern the front and we'll ice the back, but we'll start with the back and we'll give the back a few hours to dry so that when we turn it over and work on the front, it's not going to stick to our work surface. Now you can use whatever pattern and design you want. I've done a couple of cakes already with this kind of background, and they've been like bar themed cakes, so I'll put a couple of pictures of those up for you to see. For this one, again, we're going to go for a kind of a wine bar theme, but also mixed in with a bit of a spa. So I've got some grey fondant here, which is the same colour as my cake. You don't have to choose the same colour as your cake, it's entirely up to you what you want it to look like. And I'm going to roll it nice and thin, but I'm going to roll it so that it's large enough to cover 1/2 of our cake board that we've just cut out. So that should be big enough now. So I'm going to use this side for the back. I'm using a pastry brush. I'm just going to put water over the back. Again, if you want to use edible glue, you can do. And we're going to put that on like so. Now, you can just flatten it on with your hands if you want. You can use a smoother. So I've got a smoother here, which just gives you a slightly flatter finish. And I'm just going to press gently all the way around that edge with my finger. So taking a knife, what we're going to do is trim round that curved edge. Okay, and just check that you've no jaggedy bits sticking out anywhere. Just smooth them off with your finger. Now this bottom edge here, I'm not going to trim it right to. I'm going to cut it down, but I'll see if I can put my finger on the edge so you can see where the edge is. I'm going to just leave a little gap so that I can fold it over and under the bottom. So just make sure it's wet under the icing there. So I'll take a small paintbrush and I'll just make sure the icing is wet just underneath there. And then I'm just going to push it under all the way along that edge. So what we're going to do is just let that dry for a couple of hours so that when we turn it over to work on this side, we're not going to indent it as much, or that it's not going to stick to the table. I'll also put it on a bit of greaseproof paper when we turn it over as well. So I've got a bit of a darker grey now, which I'm just going to roll out. Now, my icing doesn't stick too badly to this mat that I've got, which I just purchased on Amazon. If you do find it sticking, you can put either a bit of Trex down if you're using darker colours, or a bit of icing sugar or corn flour. Generally, I go for corn flour, as I find the icing sugar dries out my icing a little bit too much. And of course, when you're doing something like this for somebody's cake, just make sure that they know that it's not edible. So what we're going to do again is just a bit of water on the front, exactly the same as you did the back. So what I'm going to do now is, I've got a ribbon that's the same width as my cake board, and what I'm going to do is just place it around there so I can see size wise how long it needs to be. And you want to have a little overlap at either end, and I'll just trim that down. Again, you can use whatever colour you want. Now if you want to, you can put double-sided sticky tape on this edge if you think it's not going to be secure enough, but I'm just going to pin it at either end here and here. Obviously this bit's not going to be eaten, and always make sure if you're giving the cake to somebody else that they're aware that this bit isn't edible. So try and push your pin in, and I'm just trying to push it in carefully without knocking my icing, because at the moment it hasn't set. So if you want to wait while it's set before doing this, then you can do. It's just me being impatient today. Okay, so that's on there, and then you've got your colour either side. Quite often it looks quite nice with the black ribbon, but I'm going for something a little bit more girly this time, so we're going for a nice light cream. So now we're going to work on our actual shelves. So have a think about how many shelves you want on there. If you want, you can score where they're going to go in while it's still soft, or you can just stick it on wherever you fancy as you're doing it. So I'm going back to my grey because that's the colour I want my shelves to be, but you can use browns or whatever colour you want. So I'm going to roll out my piece of fondant, and it is just normal fondant that I'm using. If you find it's a bit soft, just mix a bit of modelling or flour paste, gum paste in with it, and you'll find it a little bit easier to use. So I'm going to cut some thin strips. If you prefer to use a ruler as a guide while you're doing it, or a little pizza cutter, because if you find that easier, then obviously use that. Okay, and I'm just going to place these on. Now you don't have to have them central, entirely up to you where they go. So I think I might put one here. So I'm just putting a bit of water down where I want them to go. I'm going to put that on there, trim it off where it meets the bottom of my board. And you should be able to use that other bit again there. So I'll do another one there. Again, trim it off at the bottom of the board. And we'll have another one here. So we'll put that on there. And again, cut off at the bottom. I'm going to cut it off at the top. And then you can put your in-between shelves in. Again, wherever you want them to go. You might want a shelf that runs across the bottom, you might not. Entirely up to you. So I'm going to put a shelf quite high up, I think. I'm going to put the water in where I want it to go. And I'm going to push that in. And then I'll cut it to size. In there, like that. So I'll put another one in here. And of course, you don't have to cut it there, you can take it off, cut it where you've marked it, and then put it back in afterwards if that's easier for you. You spend a bit longer getting them nice and straight than what I have done. That's it so far. Like I say, you can add as many as you want, or you might want to make it a little bit different at the top. So what I'll do is I'll add a big sort of plank of grey wood at the top. So I'll use some of this bit that I've cut up earlier, and what I'll do is I'll just stick that onto this top bit here. So I'll just push that on there. And again, I'll just go around following the edge. You'll find it bends a little bit this as we're doing it. So I'll just move that back around. If you want it to look a bit more wood-like, you can add more lines. I quite often just use my ruler to push in to make different impressions. So you'll see my ruler's created just by using the back of that, and it does have pen all over it, so I do apologise. It's created some more lines in that top bit for me. I might even add a little stone looking pillar at one side. So for my stone looking pillar, I'm just going to roll quite a thick bit of grey, and I don't want it fully round, so I'm going to cut it in half and then use one half as my pillar. So we'll put this on here like so. So I've just stuck that on there, and we'll trim it top and bottom. I'm just going to add some extra bits around the pillar so it looks a bit more stone-like. So I'm just going to roll a bit of a sausage shape and put that around the bottom. I'll roll another one that's a little bit thinner to put next to it. Might be a bit long, this one, so we'll cut it down. Like that. And if you want some further up, you can put them further up too. Then we can fill the shelves with whatever you fancy. So this one, I think we might do maybe some wine or some cosmetic things. I know it's a bit of a random mix, but the birthday girl this cake is for likes Prosecco and likes spas. So we might put on some little spa towels. So I've got some white fondant. Just going to take off a little bit, and what we're going to do is roll some little towels. So we're just gonna, because they're gonna be flat on one of our shelves, we're just gonna roll it into a nice thin sausage shape, and then we'll just roll it up like so to give us a towel, or what looks like a towel that's rolled up. And we'll make several of these and then we'll stick them on. So we'll work out size wise what size they want to be, or how many we'll get in. So we might put them in like a little triangle shape and try and get each one a similar size. Right then, so when you've got your towels on, you just stick them in place. So this will be the bottom of the shelf, so I'm just making sure they're level with the bottom of the shelf. I think we'll do 2 more for here and then 1 for there. So you've got what should look like a little tower of towels that are rolled up. If you want to make some for the cake as well so that they match, you can do, just roll that out flat. You can have it as thick or as thin as you want the towel really. And I'm just gonna, you can just cut it into a rectangle. I'm just gonna try and push it into a rectangle with my fingers. And then of course you would just roll it up like so, and you can put that on the cake then so that it matches with your little backdrop. So the next thing we're going to add is some wine bottles. So I've just mixed a bit of a green from the bottom of my wine bottles. You can have a much darker colour if you think it's better darker, or you could put a mix on. Use a couple of different greens, see how they look together. So what we'll do is cut out some circles, so I'm going to roll them reasonably flat. It's got a little bit of thickness to it, and I'm just going to use a plunger circle cutter to cut out some little circles. Do some in the other colour. We're going to position these on our little backdrop, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to work out which bit they'll fit best in. So we'll put them in this bit down here. I'm going to start on the bottom, and I know they don't look like the bottom of wine bottles yet. So I think we're only going to be able to get 3 on each line. So what I'm going to do is slot them into each other like that, so that one goes in between the others. So we'll probably only get 2 on this one. And we might get 3 on the next one up. And to make them look a little bit more wine bottle like, what we're going to do is, using a ball tool, we're just going to push into the centre of each one to create, if they don't stick to your ball tool, so that they look a little bit more like the bottom of wine bottles. I'm just going to dip that in a bit of corn flour to try and stop it sticking. Okay, and they just look a little bit more like the bottom of wine bottles. And then again, to make sure that then matches with the cake, you can make an actual wine bottle. So we're literally just going to roll a thick sausage shape to start with, and then we'll make sure it's flat on the bottom. So I'm just going to push it so that we start to get a flat bottom. And then nearer the top of the bottle, we're going to roll it between our fingers so that we start to get a bottleneck. So it gradually goes into a bit of a neck shape, like so. And then cut it off at the height that you want it. If you want it to have a bit more detail, you can add a little label, and what we'll do is add just a really thin strip of this that we've rolled out around the top of the bottle. Like so. And obviously you can spend much longer on it than I am doing. Again, if you're going to keep the bottle on its side on the cake, just push the ball tool into the bottom so it's a bit more wine bottle shaped at the bottom. but you don't have to. That's just so that you've got bits and pieces then that match your backdrop to go on your cake. So I think what we'll do on this top one is we'll put a few little nail varnish bottles on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do them all in white and then I'll paint them up in colours afterwards. So I'm just going to, again, roll a long sausage shape and then I'm going to cut it into bottles. Though at the moment it's just little strips that are all the same size. So enough to fill your little shelf. So I'll put a bit of water on the shelf there. So the shelf will go this way up. I realise I hold things upside down sometimes when I'm filming. So we're going to put that in there. And we'll do exactly the same again for the handle, but we'll just roll it a little bit thinner this time. So for each one, just cut out. And we'll just stick that onto the top, like so. So we're going to paint those up. So I'm just going to use the Sugar Flare colours. I've just got a range of different pinks, but again, whatever colours you fancy. Just going to mix them with a little bit of water for this, because we're only painting small amounts. So we've got our like makeup spa half with our nail varnishes and towels, and then this is our sort of wine part. So we'll put some little wine glasses up here. So what we'll do is we'll paint some in the background, we'll paint some stalks. So again, just using a bit of white, which is a bit thick, this one. Should really use spirits to water it down as well. So I'm going to paint in some wine stalks. Okay. And I'm going to paint some slightly thinner, fainter ones in the background so it looks like there's others behind on the shelf. And again, same in between. And it doesn't look like very much yet. And then you want to paint in the bottoms. So I don't know if you can see that very well when I'm doing it. So we've just painted in little lumps there. Okay, and I'm going to paint in lightly the background glasses. Okay, and then what we'll do is put the foreground ones in with fondant. So I'm going to use my plunger cutter, so I might get a smaller size. So we're going to roll our ice in, move this to one side, not too thin. I'm going to cut out my little circles, and I'm just going to elongate them, so I'm making them a little bit longer at one end. And I'm just going to, with my nail, flatten off that top end so it becomes a little bit more wine glass shaped. And then we're going to stick these on here. You just want to make sure you've got them all the same size. You can do the shape completely by freehand if you prefer. I just find it easier to start with a round shape and then amend that. And if you want to add anything else to it, I think what we'll do is we'll colour up some little roses or some little flowers even, and we'll just use a cutter. I'll just use a bit of green and we'll put a bit of foliage on. I'll mix it with white so it's a bit of a prettier green. And for the foliage, I'm just going to use a little heart cutter. So it's a heart plunger cutter that I've got. I'm just rolling this out thin. Cut out my little heart, and I've cut out my heart. What I'm going to do is, using a tool, I'm going to put a little line down the centre, like so, and then find somewhere to stick it on. And I'm just going to put a few of these on here now. So we've got a few green leaves on there, and I think we'll add a few little flowers. Now I know it's getting darker here at my end, and I think my camera's not very good when it starts to get dark. So literally all I'm going to do is roll out some colour. I've just got a bit of pink. It's still a bit streaky, but it's fine because I think that'll look quite nice in the flowers. And I've got an assortment of plunger flower cutters, so I'm just going to plunge the different sizes and stick them on. So that's my topper. I don't know if you can see it very well in the camera. I'm not very good at guessing where you can see it, why it's out of focus. So what we need to do now is just put that into the cake. I've done a cake. Decorate your cake however you like. And you want to put it down the centre line. If you're not sure whereabouts the centre's going to be, just measure or draw yourself a little line so that you can see whereabouts you want to put it. I tend to push it in. Now, if you want to wait while it's dry, that's always a good idea. I tend to push it in, making sure I'm just holding on to the card bit. And then sometimes I'll pull it out a little bit if it doesn't feel very firm, and I'll put a little bit of royal icing just under the bottom to keep it in place. They can be done in all kinds of different designs. You don't have to go with what I've done, but I just thought it might give you some ideas. So thank you for watching, and please do pop over and have a look at more of my cakes on the page that are like this. Thanks.
If you liked this video and would like to see more, please click on the images of the other videos suggested. Also, please do subscribe to my channel using the button at the bottom right hand corner of the screen. You can also visit my cake website and my Facebook page to see more cakes and ideas.